To me, generational wealth means that you set something in motion that can impact generations for good. And when you set it in motion, it gets better and bigger, not worse. It just means handling your money with the next generation and the generation after that in mind, which means you don't spend all of it. And so I was fortunate enough to have a very diverse clientele, and many of my clients were Jewish, okay? And it just opened my eyes how they thought about money. Now, I was contrasting what I heard from them and what I saw from them to how I grew up. And many of the things that I learned, it was completely different with them. So I did this post on what I learned from my Jewish clients. And it really helped a lot of people, but it offended some people too. Because they were like, well, Jews didn't go through the same thing that black people went through. Black people, I said, well, they went through
I was about to say, it's not the same, but they didn't have it so easy either.
That's exactly right. But there were just some things that I learned from my Jewish clients.
Like what? Can you elaborate?
Oh my God. One of the things is, and I'm generalizing here, okay? One of the things is they were not conspicuous consumers. Now, what is a conspicuous consumer? Show-offs. They had wealth, but they weren't into showing their wealth until they had a lot of wealth, okay? In other words, they didn't believe in the fake it till you make it philosophy. They wanted to make it first, then look like it, instead of looking like it and not having it. So I was the opposite. I grew up, man, around broke folks who looked like they were worth $1 million, but they couldn't do anything. So that mindset. Now, here's another thing. When I was in the investment business, I was prospecting people. I'm on the phone. This is back in the 80s, man, early 90s.
The hard days.
Hard days.
Cold
No
call,
internet.
cold call.
I was a cold call machine, man. And so obviously I would go after people I thought had money. And then once I met with them, and once we start
peel that curtain back, like, excuse me?
I'm like, man, y'all broker than me, man. But then I would meet some of my Jewish prospects. They didn't look like they had a lot of money. They didn't drive the top of the line Benz and BMW, and they were loaded. So one thing was, now again, I'm generalizing, conspicuous consumption. The second thing was how they viewed generational wealth. They viewed generational wealth. If you didn't leave a significant inheritance to the next generation, then you were a financial failure. And it was like, that is a part of what you do. And they were always empowering their children and their grandchildren financially. Even stuff like birthday parties, giving people stock for birthday gifts, money to invest. Man, I got stuff for birthdays, but it was nothing that could help my future. So I would say conspicuous consumption. There are many other things. How they view generational wealth. And then, but there's one more, if you don't mind me sharing.
For sure.
How they viewed each other and how they did business with each other. Now, I'm not saying they would not do business with other ethnic groups, because I was an investment advisor for many of these Jewish people. But boy, they valued helping each other. And that was something I did not see in the African American culture.
And when you think about this, it's almost as if we as African Americans are doing the exact opposite. Right? When you talk about conspicuous consumerism, we are the people that spend the most money on how we look, hands down. And therefore have the least amount of investable assets because we're spending our money on conspicuous consumerism. Generational wealth. I think you said in a video that the average black family leaves nothing.
Zero assets.
To their kids. Even worse, instead of leaving wills, we're leaving bills. Right? When my parents died, I had phone bills in my name that I didn't know were in my name until after they passed. And I'm like, why's my credit shot, right? Because they didn't know any better, right? So instead of like leaving, we had no will, but I definitely did have bills in my name. So when you said that, I'm like, oh, that's hitting home, you know?
Man.
And then, the last piece when it comes to doing business with each other, I feel like we don't do it enough. And I feel like even when we do it, we don't do each other right when we try to do business together. I feel like when it's two African-American companies doing business together, they expect a deal, but you don't go to Neiman Marcus and ask for a discount on the shoes that you just bought, but you'll go to a black business owner and ask for a deal on their services because they're black, right? And so when I feel like the reason that we are so behind from other cultures is because like we compare us to the Jewish culture. We're doing the exact opposite of the three things that you said, and we have more control than I think we give ourselves credit for.
I agree, man. We are at the bottom of every major financial category there is. We have more debt, we have the lowest credit scores, the least amount of wealth, and I could go on and on, the least amount of savings. And we're getting worse collectively. Yeah. But now we see the superstars and the success people, and that's great. But I mean, collectively, we're going backwards. And the wealth gap is becoming wider, not narrower. And we are the ones falling behind. There was a study that said that by 2053,
that's the reason why I started Melon and Money.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that we would have zero net worth collectively.
Yeah.
By the way, and there have been different studies done on this. Yeah. About 90% of the black dollar is spent outside of the black community or the black culture. Now, some of that is because we don't have enough black businesses to spend money with all these different areas. But some of it is we just don't value each other. And so, however, other ethnic groups spend about 80 to 90% of their money within their ethnic group. So they get double incomes. They get 80 to 90% of their money circulating, and then they get 80, 90% of our money.
Which is crazy.
So we wonder why the wealth gap is so wide.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a number of reasons, right, that we could probably elaborate on as to why we think that is, from a systemic level, and all those things. But it's just crazy to think about, because it's like how can we ever close the gap if we don't see the self-worth within our own community? And it's almost like, society has done such a number on us in terms of how we see ourselves. So it's like, it's no way that person who looks like me can help me, because I can't help me, or I don't have the skill set, I don't have the resources, and I don't necessarily have the answer, right, to unraveling it. But I think the reason why we created this platform is largely in part of that, right? Representation. You've been in the investment business, you were for 25 years, me going on 15, which is crazy. And representation is a big issue, right? If you don't see anybody that looks like you who's even doing the work, you're not going to think that, that having an advisor is something that you should do. So I think that having a level of representation on the advisory level is very important. And then seeing more and more people hire and work with advisors, which is why we do the awards show, right? It's awesome. to highlight and amplify, oh, wait, yes, the wealth gap is this, but we're doing everything we possibly can to do our part to shrink it, right? And I think that representation is key. So we love the work. That's why we honor and recognize our peers, because it's like, we can't do it alone, right? We want as many people as possible to help show that, hey, this is possible. We can try our best to close this gap, but I think representation is a huge part of that. So just thank you for the work that you do.
Well, I love the work that you all do too, man.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate that. One thing that I think that people overlook is it's kind of hard to build generational wealth if you have kind of a fractured, family unit, right? We see that that's a very prevalent thing within the black community as well. Again, we could elaborate on the systemic reasons, but also we can focus on the solutions. Talk to us a little bit about how, like, the importance of family and the role that it plays in building wealth, and how because I think you've been married for what, 37?
37 years.
37
man.
years.
It'll be 38 this year.
Wow, congratulations. That's
Yes,
huge.
amazing.
Oh,
man.
I'm 38. So
Man,
that's
that's
huge.
amazing, man. Wow. Wow.
So the other thing you need to do on the back half is give us the Fountain of Youth secrets.
Yeah.
How you been married
man.
for 38 years? But yeah, just give us the kind of your perspective, right, on the role that marriage plays in all of this, and just keeping the family unit. I know you have, like you said, a son here as well in Dallas.
I got 2 sons and a daughter.
Yeah, and just how does that all play into the sustainability of this idea of generational wealth?
Oh, it's huge.
What's up, YouTube family? Thanks so much for watching the show. I hope you are enjoying this episode, but if you are watching this, there's actually a 70% chance that you're not subscribed to the channel. And that's okay. We appreciate you for watching and listening. However, if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscriber button, it'll let YouTube know that other people are interested in the show so that we can further spread the message of money.
And if you're ready to start learning how to build wealth and save on taxes, we highly recommend you join our Multiply Your Money Challenge. This is a 5-day virtual event where both me and George are going to be teaching you the advanced tax and investing strategies of the 1%. And we highly recommend that you grab a VIP ticket because both me and George are going to be answering your personal financial and tax questions. That link can be found in the show notes below. Can't wait to see you there. Peace.
Yeah. There are a lot of reasons that we could give for the wealth gap, but you can't ignore our history, especially here in America.
Right.
80% of African Americans' history we have been locked out of the economy, locked out of opportunity. Just in the last 50 or so years has the playing field began to change. I'm not even gonna call it level yet, but it's level enough to do what you need to do.
Right. For your own personal economy.
Absolutely,
right?
your own personal economy. So there's the history issue, and then there is the habit. I like the 2 H's, the history and the habits. All right. One of the things that we don't realize is the role the family plays in terms of wealth building. Yeah. There have been numerous studies done that married people, build wealth faster than single people. Right. Now, some of that is because you have dual incomes sometimes, And then some of it could be the happiness factor if it's a good marriage. Yeah. All right. So I have to put that out there because there's still an alarming rate of divorces. And that can, there was a song, you guys weren't even born then, but there was a song out, a hit song, R&B song called It's Cheaper to Keep Her.
I heard the saying.
Y'all remember Cheaper to Keep Her. Yeah. In other words, you get a divorce, man, it can really hurt you financially.
Oh, for sure.
So marriage, especially marriage done the right way, it helps you build wealth faster. And then when you have children, teaching them about money, about entrepreneurship, getting it kind of in their DNA, that helps build wealth. And then just talking about generational wealth. Now, what do I mean? I know people throw.
Yeah, but what does that word mean to you?
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna talk about the biblical meaning of it. Okay. All through the Bible, God is referred to as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, that's interesting. Why he couldn't just be the God of Abraham or became a God of Isaac, but it was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So oftentimes when God looked at people, he didn't look at just the person. He looked at what they could contribute to generation, their children, their grandchildren. So to me, generational wealth means that you set something in motion that can impact generations for good. And when you set it in motion, it gets better and bigger, not worse. And in order to do that, you have to inculcate principles, habits. You got to teach them. You got to spend a lot of time doing it. So, a good example would be the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts. I mean, I could just go name these people. That's how they think. They're thinking about their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren. So that's all generational wealth is. It just means handling your money with the next generation and the generation after that in mind, which means you don't spend all of it.